Our first speaker of the third session, which is National Histories, is Jackie Irvine, artist who works with video installation, photography, music, composition, and writing, and her talk is Sounds of Surrender and Resistance. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you. Thanks first for the invitation. And Sean invited me to speak a little bit about Days of Surrender. This was something that in 2012, I was asked to write something for Copy Press. That was a recently formed small independent publishing house in the UK. And Days of Surrender came from that invitation. Now, around that time, I'd be thinking about this photograph. It's an image that was reproduced in the Irish Times of Padraig Pearse officially surrendering to General Lowe of the British Army at the end of the Easter Rising. Or rather, I'd be thinking about this, which became the official photograph within a week. Well, then I was still thinking about this and what had happened. And I wanted to know more about the owner of the boots. Obviously, she disappeared. And there they are, sticking out from behind Pearse. As it turned out, they belonged to Elizabeth O'Farrell, a midwife who was sent out to deliver the surrender to the British Army on behalf of Pearse on streets where people lay dead trying to surrender. Her partner, Julia Greenan, let's see if this little pointy thing works. Yeah, Julia Greenan over here. She was also in the building on Moore Street, which was the final headquarters, really, of the Rising. And she was watching Elizabeth set out potentially to her death. Elizabeth O'Farrell was then tasked with delivering the surrender to the rest of the rebel outposts all around Dublin over the next few days. Days of Surrender is about these days of Elizabeth delivering the surrender. I knew nothing about them at all. And I wanted to write a work of historical fiction, really because I knew nothing about them at all. I'd never heard of them. We weren't taught about them in school. They weren't part of what I understood Irish history to be about. And we weren't told about all of these women either, who were also part of the Easter Rising. So I went to the military archives to find out a bit more, because I wanted, knowing nothing about them, I wanted to write a work of historical fiction, not an academic book, but I wanted it grounded in facts, not fantasies. And again, we're back to kind of what has been spoken about earlier on today. Yes, evidence. I wanted evidence. I wanted proof. I didn't just want them to be lesbian. I wanted to know it. I wanted to hear. I had cross-referenced different bits of the archives, who said, who saw who at 2 a.m. coming out of a bedroom, because I really didn't want to be inventing something. Of course I did, I invented it, so it's a historical fiction essentially, but not historical fantasy, and that felt very important. I'll read a couple of little excerpts from this to give you a flavour of it. Friday, 28th of April, 1916, Moore Street, number 9, Mrs. Mulvaney's. Moore Street, a street of small holdings and tenements, more chance of dying here than in the trenches. That family there, they just couldn't believe it, left it too late, lying out there in no man's land, the lot of them, and the size of their flag, the whole bloody bedsheet had taken to wave as if they were off on a picnic, filthy, but it must have been white at some point. Anyway, there was no telling them. And she tried, and the daughter tried, after they wouldn't let us in. The old man, the granda, hiding behind the door and them knocking outside and shouting, and one of our lads screaming in the road in his own blood. What did he think he was playing at? No need to have his eyes stuck up against the keyhole to see that coming. And then there was nothing else to do, and that was that. We're in, and he's still sitting there in his armchair, staring at the hole in the door and not seeing anything at all, nor any of us coming through it, nor the shock on our faces as we see him, and the screams still washing over all of us from out in the street, like watching a man drowning, the way we couldn't get to him no matter what, forced back against the walls, watching him go under until we shut the door, and still it follows us into the small parlour, and we're all cold with the sound of it seeping into us, making us feel sick and very far from home, and the old man silence doing the same. And they were upstairs, the rest of the family, the father terrified, pulling the sheet off the bed, with the mother flapping and flustering around him, trying to both help and hinder at the same time. And Liz had given up on him, seeing as how he was a spit of the alpha downstairs. The same mad blindness, no way of seeing sense until it hits him in the head. She was talking to the daughter now, slow and calm, the way she does when the waters have already broken. And she's telling them to breathe, 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 and push, and breathe, and push, and push, and push, and breathe. That's right, the slow floating solidity of it. And they'd cling to her voice for dear life in the pain and the mess and the chaos of it all. And you can see the girl doing the same. Her eyes are wide with panic, and she's licking her lips and listening, concentrating on what Liz is saying. And that's the knack of her, ladies and gentlemen, the hush she lets fall over things as they become hers. Her own kind of hush that makes you feel everything is all right, no matter what. There, pet, there. That's right. But there's no time, and this is not the time. And Liz is telling her this. Do not go out there. Don't let him take you or your ma out there. This is not the time. Tell your dad, tell him, pet. Nobody's innocent here. There are no innocent bystanders in this house nor this street. It doesn't matter anymore what you say you are. Not now. They're not listening. We're doing our best to get out of here, and then you might get out too. But right now, you can't go out there. Tell your dad, stay where you are. That's all there is to it. And the girl, she's probably about 14, with more sense than the rest of them put together. And you can see the horror of it taking shape inside her, and the panic turning into something heavy and dark and numbing as it sinks in. And she's saying, right, I'll talk to him, but there's no time and we have to go. And the screams are loud again as someone makes a dash for it. More banging and shouts and silence, and then we're out and running and there's a roar and we're in. Okay, that's a snippet of it. Thanks. Maybe another little bit, which is about Maggie Skinner, one of the other women. The .303 Lee Enfield rifle. The .303 Lee Enfield rifle, a heavy weapon with a strong recoil. Margaret Skinner, bits and pieces for detonators hidden in a bonnet, wires in her skirts, news and urgent secrets on her tongue, skidding around a corner as something hits and tears through metal and spokes and rubber. A hail of bullets rained down yet again from the roof of the Shelbourne. Maggie Skinner dragged inside, writhing in agony, moleskin leatherwork ripped and shot through, the blood spilling out darkly, staining the material cruelly. Her hand held tightly in Madame's, as Miss Madeleine French Mullen hunts and gouges for the bullets. Revenge, she is told at some point through the next feverish hours or days, lies in the form of an unarmed policeman and the Countess personally shot dead, and she passes out of consciousness again with the cold comfort of this death hanging around her neck. Outside the College of Surgeons, one of our volunteers sits on a park bench in the green, riddled with bullets. His arms are spread out across the back of the bench, looking as if he's taking the sun, head leant back, face crimson. Can't make out who he is for sure. So much blood collecting in a seeping puddle, leaking, dripping from his fingertips, these twitching for an eternity, faintly, hopelessly, noiselessly, calling for help or respite. We none of us able to get to him. Another section, Saturday, 29th of April, back in Moore Street. And the other thing, it's our only hope. It'll have to be one of you, they're saying, looking for me to Julia. So that'll be me then, as I couldn't live with myself otherwise, and I wouldn't want to. Sean McDermott sticking a flag out the window to see if it can stem the barrage. More shots, one breath, in, out, a pause, then another, in, out, a shot, a roar, a silence. I don't know if it'll hold. Here, take this, the tremor in Julia's fingers. Distract her with a wink, lightly does it. Julia. The ceasefire holds like bated breath, eerie, the sound of a piano jangling somewhere nearby, hauled out through a broken window and off at it. British barricades up the top and bottom of the street were trapped like rats in between. Now Moore Street has become no man's land. Oh, Jesus, Liz, in that empty, desolate place, halfway out across it, disappearing, with the angles growing more acute from this broken slit of a window and the dirty bit of lace curtain flapping on my face. They're shouting at the top of the street from behind their barrels and bags of sand, nosing up against them with their rifles, peeping out. What are they shouting? I can't make it out. It's that young Tommy with the moustache. I'm sure it's him. All talk about his Irish mother. He couldn't take a currant bun from Liz and give her a hug all friendly like yesterday and shoot her dead in the spot today, could he? Mind you, he probably would all right if he realised what we'd had under our aprons. Myself and Liz, accompanied by little May McLaughlin, plucky as they come, that one, gave her brother Sean the deaf ear when he spotted her in the GPO, told her to get on home with herself, that she's too young, and anyhow her dinner was ready, it'd be done to a crisp. And this is a tiny bit referring to the photograph. Saturday, 29th of April, 1916, Moore Street, 2:55 p.m. Time stretches out, walking down the road towards the end of it. Brigadier General Lowe. Excuse me, indeed we are not late, sir. No, not 1 minute over. We are, in fact, exactly on time. Commandant Pearce, removing his weapons. Slowly, sir, slowly. The revolver and sword unclipped, unhooked from their leather holsters, his volunteer jacket denuded in the process. It was then I noticed him, that Tommy, setting up for the photograph. Hold it there. 3, 2, I stepped back. 1, to spite him. Click. To not give him the satisfaction of making that photo with me in it. I am aware that the Countess doubtless would have done otherwise, that others in such a moment would have looked posterity more directly in the eye. But not Elizabeth O'Farrell. Unwilling to claim this wretched limelight, stepped in behind Pádraig H. Pearce and forgot about my feet that were left sticking out behind his, my apron, my overcoat, stepped in behind Pearce and halfway out of history, stepped in, stepped out. I would undo it if I could. I'll regret it forever. They're just little bits from Days of Surrender. In 2016, I was invited to make a work for IMA to commemorate the centenary of the Rising, and I've been thinking about Contract, which is an oral system for teaching the Scottish Highland pipes, which essentially would mean if you said to a Highland piper, Hinnerin, Fotherá, they might play back to you, for example. That's the kind of way it's passed on. It occurred to me essentially that meant that every woman's name was a melody in its own right. So I used the book as the beginning of a score. And this is what you're looking at here. Some of the women's names translated into music. That I then worked with a bagpipe player and vocalist and other musicians. There were 8 monitors. This here is tiny fragment of it in IMA, as you can see, 8 monitors and a little bit of one of the pages of the book, of which there were various. And we did it as a live performance in the Great Hall of IMA. So this is Hilary Knox, who piped everybody in to the Great Hall. And Louise Phelan, vocalist down here, Hilary, Sarah Grimes on drums, Izumi Kimura on piano. That's my sister up here and over here, reading out some of the book, and 3 string players as well, a double bass or a stone, and Liz McLaren and Jane Hughes are down here on the strings as well. So anyway, it was all in all, there were 11 tracks. Also at the time, and kind of importantly, I was listening to the leaked tapes of the Anglo-Irish banks and how they laughed as they bankrupted the country. This then was the sonic space of the work. And it's a little bit of this I want to play you now. Yeah. To say with all of that, it was taken from the bankers' tapes that had been leaked, and so these recordings that we need a moolah, and we're listening to them all going, oh yeah, and, you know, I was sitting around going, okay, this is what that particular one came from, although there were many more. Another one of the tracks was called Don't Fuck It Up, and that, you know, anyway, but this one, it was an 8-screen, 8-channel installation and a live performance. Obviously, I cut that one for a single screen just so you could be able to see it in this context. What's kind of important to say, I was telling Sean about this, is as I went, I was with my mother and my wife, and one of the days when we were listening to these leaked tapes and we went into protest at the GPO, we were pretty furious about it by this stage, and what was going on. And obviously people had anyway, the hardship it caused was unreal and they were laughing about it. So we went into the GPO, and as we were there, it was the same day, there was a pride march going on, and some of the people had shame on one side waving it at the GPO and pride on the other side waving at pride march. It was going by, and of course the one fellow was there going, what do we want? Do we want to be slaves of these bankers? Do we want to be slaves? And one little guy all in leather was going, I do. And so after a while, we left the outrage shame march and ducked into the pride march, and off we trotted again. So, so that was a particular day when both of these things kind of came together. And yeah, that's anyway my last story about it. Thank you.